All right. Welcome, everybody. It's July 23rd. Let's go ahead and stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Attendance, please, Mr. Summers.
President Dr. Reese,
Present.
Vice President McDonough,
Here.
Secretary Summers here, Treasury Whitney is absent today, Treasury Atchison, Trustee, excuse me,
Here.
thank you, Trustee Aldridge, here, and Trustee Schultz.
Here. Great. All right. Item number 2 on the agenda is changes to the board agenda as presented. Do I have any?
Yes, I would like to add a discussion under board business that we talk about the resolution that I had sent to the full board and we discussed in closed session.
Do I have a motion to support?
Yes.
Mike Aldred. Got to remember to say last names even though Mike Whitney's not here.
No G. Good job.
Any discussion?
Yes. Looking over that and what we got today, my concern with it is that some of the information that's in there is not correct data-wise and according to what has been put up there. And that I'd like to see it get corrected before we take any further motion on it or movement.
I too would like to pause on this. I'm not quite ready to vote on it. And I want to make sure, I personally would like the legislature to be back in session because I feel like it's just going to go out in the air and no one's going to hear it anyway if we do it now. So.
Okay. Any other comments?
I would just like to say that I hope we can move forward with it. I think that it is important. It's very similar to the State Board of Education's resolution that they sent out in May and discusses things like the legislation currently for threat assessment and suicide assessment being mandated in schools and a commission being created in the event of other tragedies similar to what happened here in Oxford. So I guess I would encourage that we do move it forward.
I will just add that there are items in it that are factually inaccurate as of 4:49 p.m. today. So we do need to rewrite it and bring it back, and I would push to rewrite it and bring it back. I'm not saying no. I don't think anyone's saying no. I just think in its current format, it's not releasable under attorney-client privilege at this point until it's factually accurate. So with that being said, we'll take a vote. Under policy 2502, we have to take a majority vote of the board in order to add items to the agenda under our new policies now. So I'll take all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. All right, majority rules. We'll bring it back to the next one, Amanda.
All right.
All right. Kelly, I did not receive any scheduled public comment, did you, or Dr. Milligan? Okay, great. All right, consent agenda items. So we have the bills payable for June 2024, human resource updates, meeting minutes for July 8th, 9th, and 10th, all in your packet that was posted on Thursday. Can I get a motion? Colleen?
Sure. Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have support? Amanda? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, item number 5, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Milligan.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present some exciting happenings here in Oxford. First thing I wanted to let everybody know is that I did an interview. Terry and Allison at OCTV invited me over to do an interview, and it was a really fun experience. Allison is an intern, and so it was our first time doing an interview like this, so we had a really good time, so that should be coming out soon. We also did a Wildcat Wellness with our cheer team at the high school, And they were working in small teams, and they were problem solving. They were given items to construct the tallest tower possible. And one team would watch the other team and then give feedback about what were the strengths in the team's communication, what were some things that the girls thought the team could do a little bit better with, and then they flip-flopped and the other team watched. So it was really a great SEL activity and a leadership building activity. So that was really fun to watch. I also got an invitation to attend Lego camp. I wish I was an attendee because they were having a blast. So I was invited there to check out the camp, see the program, see the resources, and that was at Oxford Elementary. So lots of really great things going on in the district. I was, oh, there's always a video. And so one of the suggestions from the community was to go to Cook's Dairy Farm. And so many of our community showed up. We had several colleagues here show up. And of course, thanks to Christy, our Executive Director of Communication, we have this fun little ditty. Right, exactly. All right, let's see. Well, howdy, everyone. This is Dr. Milligan, Superintendent of Oxford Community Schools, and I'm here to say thank you to everyone for the Cook's Dairy Farm suggestion. It was great seeing everyone there, especially our littlest learners. We had fun petting the baby cows and getting licked by them. We even had a chance to see how they milk the cows to get fresh milk to make their ice cream. I look forward to meeting more of our Oxford community this Wednesday at the parking lot party for our incoming 6th through 12th grade students from 5 to 7 p.m. on the pool side of the Oxford High School. Come join the fun, and I hope to see you there. Right, so, yay! We had a great time, and let me just say, that whole cow licking my hand thing has turned into a meme now, so you'll probably see it places inadvertently, so it was just a great time, so thank you for that suggestion. Let's see, will it go? Okay, yes. The Reptarian at the middle school in the field house. So many of our 6th through 12th grade students were able to come to the Reptarium and learn about reptiles. So snakes and lizards. I had a chance to hold a bearded dragon. I have a strong affinity for bearded dragons. I even, one of my colleagues sent me an advertisement to, buy a bearded dragon. I did not do that though. So it was a great learning experience. The organization that set this up taught the kids about reptiles, and as a former biology teacher, I was completely engrossed in it. I'm not going to say I butted any of the children out of the way to hold the reptiles, but it may have just looked that way. So that was a really great event as well. And finally, I had an opportunity to be the guest reader at the library, Oxford Library. We had lots of preschool students there, and of course I chose the best book ever, which was Love Monster. It was all about a furry monster looking for love, and I think this one has a video as well.
But in a blink of a googly eye, what happened? He found someone just like him. And everything changed. You see, sometimes when you least expect
I do love love, but that was the kids just were a blast. The the littlest learners are always so funny and so fun, and they had lots of different comments to share, and little Amelia had lots to say. Yeah, so it was a great experience. So I've just been thrilled to get out into the community, get to know people, have these opportunities. It's my favorite thing is to be with students and be with staff, and it was a wonderful. And that actually the day before was storming, so it was great that the weather cooperated and we were able to have that activity. So, oh nope, there we go. We're going to hold Zoom office hours, as I mentioned in my 30-day plan. There are individuals, for whatever reason, that aren't able to come out to these events, and so I want to make sure I give them an opportunity. So we have we had one today. We have 2 more coming up, this upcoming Monday at 1 o'clock and Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. So it's an opportunity. It's very casual. You can pop in. You can ask questions. You can share thoughts. Just around Oxford, the community, the schools, and again, just helping me with my knowledge so that we can move forward as one. So those are some upcoming opportunities. And then if you want to switch.
Did you have people today?
Not today. Okay. Not today. But we didn't give them a lot of lead time, so we're hoping that by announcing it now that we'll have more people.
Good.
Yeah. And I just want to, so I'm going to continue to revisit my 30, 60, 90-day plan. So I'm coming to the end of my 30-day plan. So I just want to review that one more time, and I'm going to go through and identify the pieces that I've accomplished, and then there's a couple things that I still have to work on. So again, the purpose of the plan is to lay the foundation for a comprehensive and compassionate recovery process while leveraging the community's resilience and resolve to repair, heal, and rebuild a thriving educational ecosystem for all children. And again, this came out from the survey that the families and staff did for the leadership survey during the superintendent search. And so we lifted these concepts from that survey. The 30-day plan, so since I've been in the district, I've been focusing on this part of the plan, parent relationships and determining needs. So I have been out there, and I mean out there, pretty much everywhere. I've attended community meetings, events, support groups. I've connected with families. I highlighted staff because staff is on vacation right now, rightfully so, well earned and deserved. So I'll talk about that in a minute. Community members, we're working on the online office hours. So again, we have 2 more opportunities for that. So that's the community engagement piece. And I just want to bring to the board's attention that the icon in the right-hand corner aligns with the icon that you'll see in the Monday memo that I send out. So you'll see how those pieces fit in. So that's the community engagement. Stakeholder meetings, lots and lots of meetings. Awesome meetings. I have learned so much. I had a opportunity to meet with the village clerk, and I am just amazed by the knowledge. Curtis, his knowledge is just phenomenal. He was raised in Oxford. He graduated from Oxford High School when it was OES. So. And OES was the high school, yeah, so that far back. And so he just shed tons of historical knowledge. So just lots of information and knowledge about the area. Having opportunity to work with school board members, again, teachers is highlighted because they're on vacation. So we're hoping that as we round the corner into August, we'll have some events that would appeal to them. One of them we're thinking about is DIA, Detroit Institute of Art, has a Saturday workshop for educators, meditation, yoga, and art. You get to do art. So we're hoping to maybe set something like that up. Support staff, finance specialists, village council members, business community members, Parks and Rec, library services, local media. I attend an Oxford Leaders meeting once a month, and many of them are there. And we go around and we talk about what's happening in our area of expertise, and it's incredibly enlightening because so many of those things overlap with what we do in the schools, and we can partner to make our student experiences better. Assessment of mental health and trauma resources. So the arrow that's going to the right is something I'm continuing to work with, understanding the different ways community members continue to experience and manifest trauma. This will be ongoing because every time I talk with someone and they feel comfortable sharing with me their experiences, it's different. Everybody's experience is different. So I will continue to learn this, most likely for my entire tenure. Assess the current support system for students and staff, as well as families, and identify immediate needs and possible gaps in mental health services. We did a survey with Easter Seals just last week, and it was very enlightening, the things that were really strong and we rated really strong in, and then there were some areas that we as a group knew, hey, we need to strengthen some of these pieces. So it was helpful for me to go through that survey so I know what we need to work towards. Review emergency response protocols, review district safety plans, collaborate with local law enforcement and emergency services. I've been able to work with the sheriff's department as well as the fire chief. Identify preparation protocols, ensure trauma-informed approaches to all emergency practices and drills. And then again, the collaboration piece that's going to continue is working with district safety teams and just making sure we are all very clear on the safety protocols. There should be absolutely zero questions. If we ever have to deal with any type of safety issue, it should be very clear what everybody does, how they do it, when they do it, and just making sure we continue to reiterate those safety protocols. And finally, the communication plan, we are putting the finishing touches on that. Communication is near and dear to my heart and something that I want to make sure I do well. And so I am a learning leader and will continue to grow and strengthen this aspect of my leadership. So the two pieces of the communication plan is to develop a transparent and proactive communication plan to keep all stakeholders informed about and involved with, and it's just a variety of things that I want to make sure that everybody is informed. It's always unfortunate when you miss a group of people because they feel left out, and I want to make sure that I am very inclusive in all of my communications. And then finally, establish open lines of communication with local media to provide accurate and timely information, as well as local boards and commissions. And I've been in touch with all of those individuals. So I've been busy, very, very busy, but it's been great. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. So I made a graph. I'm a fan of graphs. So here's where I'm at with the 5 different components. So the communication plan is the one that needs the most work. Safety protocol and mental health resources, just making sure I'm continuing to listen, I'm continuing to gain understanding, and making sure I'm very clear on those resources and those protocols, and that I am reinforcing that others are very clear on those protocols and resources. So not too bad. I'm getting there. I'm 100%. I'm a 100% sort of person. So that's my goal. So overall completion. The next steps. So moving forward is 1. Here's what I still need to do. I'm going to continue to have events to connect with school staff and teachers. That is a high priority for me as they begin trickling back to begin with the school year. So hopefully we'll have lots of fun opportunities for them. Continue to meet with community members. Meet with school safety teams is another piece I need to continue with. Develop and present a comprehensive communication plan. And as I mentioned, our hope is to finish that sometime next week. And then finally, at our next board meeting, I'm going to synthesize and present outcomes from the 30-day plan. So essentially, I'm going to surface themes. Everyone has a voice, and every voice has value. And we're looking at themes across all of the groups and all of the individuals that I've had a chance to talk with. As I mentioned when I was here in the spring, the two themes that were so evident and was so joyous to hear people say that, and I continue to hear this, is the love of Oxford, just hands down, love of Oxford, the love of the schools, and the love of students, right? That continues to come up. And so that is a wonderful foundation to build from, and so the additional information that I've got from these conversations, I'm hoping to kind of scaffold what this might look like and then move us towards and galvanize a strategic planning session. So there you go. No small task.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I appreciate all that you've done since you've joined us. It feels like it's been longer than 30 days.
Right.
For
Truly.
sure. Do any of the other board members have comments or questions? Amanda?
I just had a quick one. I know that we dumped a monumental task on you with the new policy service and developing the AGs that go along with that. And I know that you've had cabinet and retreat and are going over that. But I just wanted to know how confident and comfortable you are feeling with having those developed, implemented, and making sure that they are being followed by the start of the school year.
All right, thank you for that question, Amanda. So our retreat last week, we had a representative from Troon come and speak to the policies. The way that the Troon policies are built, which is really great, is that the AGs are actually embedded in the policies, with the exception of any internal forms that we use. So right now, we're making sure we're collating what internal forms we have that may not be incorporated into the policies. And then our next step is to take that and work with our ad team. And we're actually have an entire afternoon carved out to work on the policies and making sure that everybody's up to date on the policies. They understand the significance of the policies. Policies, I say this all the time, policies are your best friend. They support the work that we do. It stops calling into question, well, I have this situation, what should I do? What does the policy say, right? So leaning into policy and leveraging it so that students are safe, staff is safe, that we're able to function appropriately and supportively. So we've been able to do quite a bit of work with that. And it's also something we'll continue to do because the board policies are like this thick. So, it's not something we're going to fire hose people with the first day they come back. So we're going to scaffold their learning throughout the year. But we're hitting the most significant ones that we make sure are in our new hire packets and that people can speak to very clearly. The activity we're going to have them do is essentially, okay, what are the key components of the policy/AG? And what does this look like in practice in our schools so that they can visualize how they will be engaging the work. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Any other questions or comments?
Yep, just one. I just wanted to thank you. Thanks for making yourself part of Oxford. You're doing a great job.
Okay. All right. Moving on to item number 6 on the agenda is the Board of Education matters. Last meeting, we brought forward the anti-bullying policy for public comment, but we realized that we didn't have many individuals in the audience, so we opened it up for emails. We did receive one email from a community member that the entire board was able to see, but now I'm wondering if Mike and Amanda saw it. You did? Okay, good. I just want to make sure, with you guys being new, that you were able to read the feedback on that. With that being said, we'll move to adopt the policy, then have a further discussion about that if we need to, and then we'll vote on it. So if I get a motion. Mike, if you want to go ahead and read it.
Move to adopt policy 5207.01, anti-bullying as presented.
Do I have support? James? All right. Any discussion from policy committee members on the email specifically, just to make sure that we didn't miss anything? If your thoughts.
Pertaining specifically to that email, a lot of it would be Tanya's arena as opposed to ours in changing the policy. It's more of the process and the practices within the school. So We did not see a reason to include the specific, I don't want to, go into detail too much into this person's email.
That's fine.
But just to say that we had discussed a lot of the issues in policy committee and determined at that time, and still do believe that the policy as written now is sufficient and thorough, and that your AGs are where you delve into the specific topics that that person was speaking to. So, me personally, I am good with it as is.
Okay. Any other thoughts or discussion? Okay, we'll move forward to a vote, and all those in favor say aye. 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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Great, thank you. All right, item number 7 on the agenda, curriculum instruction. Anita Conja-Collins, 3rd grade social studies curriculum.
All right, good evening. I'm coming to you today with a rather unusual request, kind of as far as timeline with social studies that was recently adopted, in particular to 3rd grade social studies. So the purpose of tonight is to provide an update around our 3rd grade social studies curriculum and at least present to seek future approval. It doesn't have to be tonight, it could be at the next board meeting, of returning to a previously used but newly updated curriculum. And the reason I said that it was an unusual request is because last June 23rd to be exact, Dr. Van Staveren presented to the board newly piloted and seeking approval to adopt 2 curriculums. So TCI, which was adopted for K2 and 4-5, and then SAVAS, which was adopted for 3rd grade. And the reason 3rd grade is unique is it's the only grade level that is specific to Michigan history. So not a lot of vendors have a Michigan-specific social studies curriculum. SAVAS happened to be making one while we were piloting, and we were able to see it and preview it and use it a little bit before we made a decision to go with it. At the time, the previously used curriculum was not available. It was still the older version, and Oakland Schools was at least 2 or 3 years out from updating it, which is why it was not considered in the pilot. So again, just the current status. Currently, we are using teachers, TCI for K2 and 4-5, and SAVAS for 3rd grade. During the course of the 23-24 school year, the 3rd grade teachers were making notices, at least noticing after implementing for a full year, that it isn't as comprehensive. It is definitely standards aligned, but it is going more surface than it was going deep compared to our previous curriculum. And part of the reason we didn't know that at first is it was still being developed, and a lot of the supports were meant to be online additional supports, because when they were piloting, they were able to see what the other grade levels look like, but it has not been developed the way that they basically told us it was going to be. So during the last school year, the teachers had reached out to me and requested additional time with the vendor, and I arranged that for them. They had some Zoom sessions with them to ask questions, or to maybe we're missing something, can you show us where this is? And they kind of came back from those sessions a little bit disappointed that they hadn't been developed yet. In April 12th, we had grade level collaboration time. So each grade level across the district came together to have an afternoon of planning. And so all of the 3rd grade teachers were together. I actually happened to be away doing, I think, Tanya's visit, and I was monitoring their notes, and I was like, oh boy, they're coming in hot with their social studies comments, because it was a Google Doc. And 2 3rd grade teachers from OES, Annie Tim and Jen Terry, approached me. They said, hey, the 3rd grade curriculum has been moved up with OS, with Oakland Schools. They are going to release the new one, and there's a presentation in May. Can we at least go and listen? And when teachers ask, you're like, yes, because they are truly invested, in their voice in the work that they're doing every day is very important. So they did go, they came back and sent me a summary, and they sent it to the rest of the third grade teachers across the district and said, this is what we noticed, this is what we think is better, and we would love to consider going back to it. And so that's why we're here today. They feel that the Oakland Schools curriculum is way more comprehensive. Some of the units go deeper, especially with areas like around the three fires as examples. Michigan-specific economics, where a national vendor didn't get too far into it. The resources are also very well laid out in like slide decks. Everything is printable and easy for the teachers to use. Every book and story that they use is recorded on a video. So just to tell you a little bit more about the social studies curriculum from Oakland Schools, it is a national curriculum really available to anybody in the United States, anybody in Michigan. It's open and free. It is a comprehensive curriculum that's aligned to the 2019 standards, as well as the frameworks, the MC3 framework and the C3 framework. The teachers really highlighted that it engages students through inquiry, and they ask the compelling question. The whole curriculum is based on what makes Michigan special, and then each unit has a compelling question as well. One of the things that the teachers really appreciated is that there is a homemade journal. Right now with the curriculum that we adopted, it's a pre-made journal. So the kids, part of the expense that we had with our curriculum now is that they're getting a spiral bound journal. This one the kids would be actually making. And then they really appreciated the additional literacy skills involved, the reading, writing, reflecting, and understanding informational sources, looking at artifacts, looking at maps and primary sources, secondary sources, and so on. I want to go back to this because I think it's really important to note what the teachers are asking is a lot of work. My initial reaction to them was like, are you sure? This is going to be a lot of heavy lifting. And they said, we're sure it's the right thing to do. So I want you to know that that's their thinking. So despite this being really hard, they're willing to take it on because they think it's the right thing to do for the kids. Oops, I'm going the other way. So again, this was previously used in our district. It was honestly last developed when I was still in the classroom, which is a really long time ago. That is why it was not considered when we were reviewing and piloting curriculum. It was not updated to the 2019 standards. It is free, so there would be no cost to adopting or readopting this curriculum. I do want to be transparent and acknowledge that there was an expense, obviously, with the adoption of the Savas curriculum. It was about $18,000 for 3 years. Signing 3 years was significantly less expensive than a 1 year at a time. I have been working with our awesome vendor, our rep from the vendor, and asking for either a refund for the unused 2 years of materials and or a credit to where else we use their materials. So we use it at the middle school, and we also use it at OVA fully. So she's really working hard. She was hoping to have an answer for me before 6:30 tonight, but she texted me and she said, I've not heard from my business office yet. And I just want you to know that that's not lost on me. I said recorded videos, slide decks. I sent Dr. Milligan the full curriculum to share with you guys, so I'm not gonna share this one unit unless you really want me to. Let me know, okay. Do you want me to show the video though?
Might as well.
Okay.
MC3 is the name we give to the Michigan Citizenship Collaborative Curriculum, which is a free, public, full K-12 curriculum for social studies that is developed and housed at Oakland Schools. The MC3 was originally created in response to the state's first content expectations, and in 2019, when Michigan released its revised social studies standards, we began a multi-year process of revising the K-12 courses within the curriculum. Each course that we've revised has had a slightly different approach. So in the past, we've had teacher writers. This year, as we're revising 3rd and 4th grades, our Oakland Schools social studies team is writing and reviewing. And we also have teacher reviewers in the classroom who are doing close reads of the lessons and piloting the lessons.
For 4th and 5th grade, the introduction of inquiry is not new to students necessarily because they use that in science. So we're taking that social studies lens of inquiry and letting kids use evidence to answer questions. I think it's a unique approach to just the social studies part where people are maybe used to, here's a fact, memorize it, now you know this information. Instead, we want kids to be good thinkers and we want them to use evidence to answer questions, but also be able to prove why they think that answer is accurate. The kids then get to analyze that evidence themselves to try to answer those questions, and they get to debate it with each other, and sometimes they agree and sometimes they don't, but as long as they use evidence to provide an answer, we're good with it.
The MC3 curriculum is wonderful. The students love it. It's very hands-on and engaging for them. We use a lot of different varieties of artifacts and tools, maps, charts, photographs, to keep them really interested in what we're doing and what we're learning, and it really makes connections for the students. As an MC3 curriculum reviewer, we get the lessons ahead of time. We read them, make notes about any changes that we would like to see. I also am implementing the lessons within my classroom. And then I take the feedback back to our team and make even additional changes so that they can be used successfully in anybody's classroom.
Some of the benefits that MC3 has provided Rochester are not only the deep inquiry units, but also professional development facilitated by the wonderful staff at Oakland Schools, collaboration time across the district for teachers, and as an instructional coach, going and being able to speak to other colleagues and staff members about the curriculum.
From my perspective, the curriculum is really helpful in that it gives me everything that I need to teach it. I can give it to my student teacher and she can use it just start to finish. I could give it to a substitute teacher or a guest teacher that we might have in our classroom. I also know that everything I need is there.
The biggest student outcome that I've noticed is that the students are so engaged and they just love social studies.
I'm just so thankful to Oakland Schools and the Oakland Schools staff for all the hard work that they've put into designing these units for our students. It brings such rich learning so we can take an honest look at the past and use that information to build a better future.
Okay, so that was just a little overview of their development process. So I know they said since the standards came out, they started rewriting them. They were starting at various grade levels. It takes them almost a year to do just a couple of grade levels. And so it was the order that they were moving in that we're like, we can't put them on the list. And then I think a lot of districts were like, 3rd grade is really unique, and they sped it up. So that's why we're finding ourselves in a little bit of the predicament that we're in. If you were to approve this, I did work with Oakland Schools. They did reserve a couple of days to work with our 3rd grade teachers specifically. They know that it is pending board approval, but I at least wanted to get on their calendar because they book up very, very fast, and I want to make sure our teachers have the support that they need to get things going.
What are those dates, Anita? Do you know?
I
Sorry.
think they're like September 11 and 18.
Okay,
Those are sounding really good, but I can double check them.
okay.
I did email the 3rd grade teachers last week to see if they'd be willing to come in. Nobody responded. I think they're really on summer break. So, yeah. So that's all I have for you today. Again, I understand it's a very unusual request, and it's important that you know that from at least from a fiscal standpoint, that I would not really bring this request forward if it wasn't so strongly recommended by the teachers. It would have been very easy for me to say, we just put this in place, but the truth is, they're looking out for the kids, and I appreciate that.
Great. Do any of the board members have any questions?
If you could just pass on to the teachers and stuff that gave you the feedback, I'm sure that they probably felt a little awkward coming to you and stating to go back and stuff, but the fact that they've been teaching a different version, an older version of this, we went to the new stuff, and they see that it's not meeting the mark for our kids, I think speaks volumes to the comfort level and the fact that they're truly looking out for that, and to go back and stuff, and I mean, free is nice, and I appreciate you working on the other fact of it getting credits and stuff. That's great that even the vendors even trying to work with us from that standpoint. So thank you very much for the presentation on it, and the teachers. I'm glad they're enjoying their spring break or spring break. You know, their time away. I'm glad they're doing that. They didn't come.
You're welcome, and I will tell them they're a great group.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you. Anita, I do have a couple of questions. Did you talk to or survey all of the third grade teachers? And can you give us just an idea, you know, is it 80-20 or are they 100%?
100%. I told them that's the only way we would do it.
Okay, so they all agree. And I did have a chance, thank you for sending that too. I looked
welcome.
through and I thought that it was very interesting, that curriculum compared to Savas, where, you know, in our survey, one of the main issues from students was that the curriculum wasn't meeting them in real life examples and relating to them. And I thought that this curriculum did a really excellent job of doing that. It was very current. It had very current issues. It had our current politicians in there. So I thought that they did a very good job with that. I did have one more question, and I did not give this to you ahead of time, so if you don't have the answer. For student growth, do we have any sort of metric or how students fared with the old curriculum, now new, and then Savas? Could you talk a bit about that?
The only really big assessment, unless it's a unit assessment, is really MSTEP, to be honest. And I don't have it in front of me, but we did show growth in some grade levels with social studies. I'm not 100% sure if it was third grade, but I do think that the new curriculum had something to do with that across the board. But as far as student growth, we really focus on reading, writing, and math for our major growth scores. Social studies would be more unit-based, and then MSTEP as a summative state assessment. Yeah.
Okay. And as far as getting the credit or refund back, do you think that decision would be made by our next board meeting?
I hope so. She was really hoping to do it today, but
Okay.
she said she was at the mercy of their business office, so I hope so, yeah.
Okay.
So I completely understand if you would like to wait to
Would
do
there
that.
be any consequences? Are we making it harder for you or the teachers or anybody if we do wait until the next meeting for
No.
decision? Okay, those were my questions. Thank you.
Yep.
All right.
Sure. First of all, thanks. It's been a while since I've read curriculum, so it was fun. It was interesting to read. I really loved the Pure Michigan Journal and the What Makes Michigan Special. Those were great. I really can appreciate trying to make social studies engaging and interesting because, you know, let's face it, it used to be pretty boring. It can be really dry, so that's great. And that, you know, they're really, the comments about making kids good thinkers, you know, that was great. So I appreciate your presentation tonight. Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right.
Yes.
Well, we'll go ahead and wait until the August 13th
Perfect.
agenda, since your PD's not till September, and I would just keep them scheduled for now.
Perfect.
Move them. How's that?
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Moving on to finance and operations. Ms. Courtney, what I'll preface this with is, on Friday, we had a finance committee meeting, and so this will be kind of a blend of Courtney went over all of these presentations with the finance committee. Myself and Mike Whitney were there, and so I'll probably pepper in and interrupt you if you're comfortable with that, especially as some of the stuff is developing in the state level today, actually. So,
Yes.
yes, I'll let you go ahead and kick it off, and I will participate and add my commentary.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so as Aaron had mentioned, we met last week for the Board Finance Committee, and we know that there was a lot of changes with the state budget from what we had budgeted in May and what they were taking to the governor once it became June. She did sign it within the last couple hours, so yay, that's exciting. But there is still a lot of unknowns. There's not a lot of guidance on what the different changes are going to be. Full disclosure, a lot of our focus has been on OEIC, getting that rolling to make sure that we meet those milestones and get the kids in on time. So now that she has signed the budget, we will full force go into this and start analyzing. A lot of the information we still don't know yet. Our enrollment's still opening. We're still signing kids up for school. We have to look at staffing based off growth or enrollment changes. So there's a lot. It's kind of early to do a bottom line number, but some of the high level topics that I wanted to bring to you. I think I mentioned last time that the foundation allowance, they approved a $0 increase. I budgeted a 2.5% increase, which equaled $98.61 per pupil per FTE. Them being at $96.08, which was what we are last year, we're going to remain this year. That's about $253 per student.
And I'll comment too, Courtney, it's important to recognize that when we build our budgets, those numbers were driven off the proposed budget by the governor. So just because she proposed something, the legislator then went through and updated it based on what it is that they were hoping and the lobbyists were hoping to achieve this year. And they came to the conclusion for the first time in a very long time in the state of Michigan that they were not going to increase the foundation allowance, which is this number of 9608. This number can change, so if you're going and looking at other school districts' budgets and you say, Rochester Hills gets 11,000 and some change, that has to do with business taxes in the community. Oxford doesn't have as many businesses as Rochester, and so just keep that in mind that our foundation allowance is the lowest possible in the state of Michigan compared to some other districts that we actively are surrounded by because of just community businesses in the area. So once we get full pupil accounting to the point where we feel comfortable with it, we'll reanalyze what that actual number will look like. But the difference right now between budget and actual will be $253 per pupil, which is significant if you think about, last year I think we had 4,200 seated students, somewhere around there. Don't quote me on that exact number, because our non-seated students are a little bit different. But for this case, it could be a significant dip. However, I'll let you mention the next one.
So the next big one is the changes in MIPSers, and this is also kind of the reason why I can't just say, well, this is the bottom line number, because there's a lot of factors that go into that. They are...
Why don't you tell especially the new board members, what MIPSers is?
Oh, sorry. MIPSers is our retirement system. So it's the rates that we pay per dollar that we pay our staff, we have to pay into the retirement system. So there's reportable wages, non-reportable wages. There's about 10 different plans that you can be in. Every plan's got a different rate. There's a lot of factors that go into it. And also, they've done a lot of one-time payments and a lot of supplementing. The UAL is to catch up when it was unfunded. There's been changes to that. Last year, we got a big one-time payment as well. So this is where I say there's a lot of unknowns. There's talks about some of that going away, some of that coming in. Is it really 5.75%? I saw another number where it was a blend of about 4% once you take into consideration all of those numbers. So until we get some guidance from the state, I wouldn't even be able to dive into what that would be.
And I think that's the important thing to know about this, is that this particular reduction in the MIPSers could potentially place some money into Oxford Community Schools or any of the districts because it's lower than what it was in the previous year. So in theory, we'll have extra money. In theory is what I would say. But there's other areas of the budget that were dramatically reduced that we may have benefited from as well, such as the 31AA, which is next. With that being said, until we get guidance from the state, sometimes the state also determines how you can spend some of these dollars. That's why we have accounts with a number and an alpha character after it, because they then assign rules on how you can spend that money. I know one of the conversations that was at the board not too long ago was the food service construction and budget, and what was maybe not well understood was that that was a very specific line item, could only be spent on that very specific thing and couldn't just be put into foundation allowance because the state puts rules around the money. What they have not determined or shared other than, you know, what the actual dollar amount per district will be, which will be based on payroll and contributions by all of the staff, will be how we can or cannot spend that money if there's going to be any rules around it. Our hope is we can just dump it into foundation allowance to supplement the difference, the $253 difference. And any of you who've looked into school finance knows that there's a big study out of Oakland County Schools which says the actual cost to educate a student is somewhere close to $12,000. So we're already quite lower than what the actual reality of educating students today is. So.
Correct. So the 31AA was another hot topic item once the changes came through. It was a substantial decrease from what the proposed budget was to what the approved budget is. They also removed some of the flexibility. Instead of saying you can hire, you can use it for any mental health or safety, they have designated items. When I reviewed the items, they seemed to cover what we would, but they did take away that, you know, other, you know, your freedom to do whatever you want with it. There is some restrictions on it. So,
yeah, the state level budget was 325 million and now is 25 million for the entire state. How that impacts Oxford specifically, we'll bring it back once we, you know, flush it all out. Because again, it's based on an algorithm of how much they give each school. And I don't know what the actual algorithm for that is. It might be pupil based, it may be something else, but we'll bring that back. But it was, and to Courtney's point, was the most flexible way for any school, not just Oxford, to either spend it on mental health and or safety. If you think about what we've been through and what we have and have access to, some schools, you know, still today don't have night locks and could use that to buy night locks, or they could use it to have an extra school counselor, or they could, and now there's going to be rules around it. So a lot of districts, even ours, will have to look and see how we're currently spending that money to see what potential impact there could be on programming or purchases that have been or planned to have been made.
And then the last thing, I was just kind of highlighting like the big hot topics that I keep seeing people. The GSRP program would not affect our general fund, as that is in a special revenue fund, but I thought it was important to bring up. They did some substantial increases in that. It's going to allow more access to students, flexibility with caseloads, some really good things. So that was a really good addition into the state budget, and I've seen a lot of talk on it, so I thought it was worth mentioning.
And free meals will continue too. That's not on your list, but that was a one-time appropriation last year for free meals for all students, breakfast and lunch. That does maintain in this budget coming over. So those were kind of the big tick marks on some of the bragging points, was that expanded preschool access for, you know, a lot more children in the state of Michigan, but also continued free food meals for students. And we know meals are important, so.
Do we have any questions on the budget update?
So the Finance Committee will meet again now that at the time, the governor had not signed the bill, and the fiscal year actually starts for the state on October 1st, where our fiscal year begins July 1st. So we're already always working in a mismatch between what we proposed for our budget, because our budget technically started on July 1st. But as you can tell today, the governor signed the budget. So we're going in it blind almost always, waiting for the legislator and the governor to pass the budget. And then we have to go back and make updates. And then the fiscal year budget, when all the distributions start, would be after October 1st. So. Will do. We'll meet again.
More to come.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing in your board packet was the narrative about the roof at OEIC. So I had also mentioned that the last time I was here that we were working on getting some quotes for the roof and, sorry, I've got this on the wrong page. Oh my gosh. Okay. And we were able to secure a contractor to be able to do that. We discussed that Dr. Milligan would have to do an emergency approval for that, just for the timeline. And I do have some information in the presentation, but I wanted to go through the narrative so that if you had any questions on that, we did choose BMS CAT, formerly known as Jarvis. They were the same contracting company that came in and renovated the high school, so we do have a great relationship with them. They are going to hopefully meet our deadline of having it completed before the start of school. We had a pre-construction meeting yesterday, and it seems to be on track and ready to go. So we would just need, I think you have a motion for you to, I don't remember what the wording is.
Yeah, it's in the packet. When you're done, we'll go over it.
You want to do it at the end of this?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I also told you last time I brought you a brief update on the OEIC project, but I want bringing back the budget and some more details on some of the items that we've made progress on.
Well, I guess maybe we'll stop at the roof first real quick, because the narrative was put into your board packet. That's the new format that Dr. Milligan and the business team brought together, so we'd have more of a comprehensive, in healthcare we call them SBARs, situation background recommendations, assessments. Does anybody have any questions on the roof and anything? So the goal would be to have the roof completely installed with shingles, right? Not just, yeah, by August 22nd. I just want to make sure. Yeah, okay. So we'll come back to that and approve it, but I think it's important for everybody to see the full picture too as we go through.
Okay. So in February, Sam Barna brought you some information on the budget and as well as some updates. We had some change orders that needed to be processed, and we had already gone through our contingency that we had written into the original contract with PCI Daily. So in February, this is what Sam brought to you and was approved. So I wanted to start with that and bring back the groundwork of where we started on the budget. So the original project was going to be 4.178. After the changes in February, we brought it to 4.385. And that included the $50,000 extra contingency that he asked for. That was for any last minute things that would come up in inspections, or if they had any regular construction situations come up before the end of the project was completed. That way he didn't have to keep coming back and asking for a little bit more and a little bit more. These were also presented to you as kind of a synopsis of the items that were outstanding as of February. Some of these things we've buttoned up since then. The architecture fees are for the main building as well as the parking lot, and then also the redesign of the parking lot. The structured cabling, the card readers, the mass notification, and the water tap fees. You approved all of those back in January and February. The parking lot renovation and the furniture, I brought to you the beginning of July. Was that the last meeting? They're all blending together.
The last meeting.
At the last meeting. Originally, when Sam had brought those two, these are the numbers. I also carved out, that was the estimate. Here's the changes from what they actually were. So we estimated it was gonna be $335,000 for architecture fees. That increased, $24,000. That was mainly from, the design of the parking lot that entailed some more fees. There was some more permit fees that were pulled, so that's the change there. The water tap fees ended up coming in under budget, so yay. The parking lot was just slightly over once we had the final, and that did include the contingency that we asked for of $30,000. And then the furniture was just a little bit higher than what we had originally budgeted. The 150 ended up being about 153. I outlined some of the additional things that we've added since February. The storage container, that's what's storing some of the furniture that IDS had donated to us, as well as some other items that were in the OEIC property that needed to be removed during the construction. The moving expenses for OVA, Loft, and Bridges, the 3 programs that are moving over there. We did have some additional technology that we needed to install. The instructional technology I brought to you last meeting, I think, as well. That was for the Promethean boards for the classrooms. And then we do have a couple items that we are still working on. The white box of OVA is, we rent the 3 spaces that OVA is currently in. When we took ownership of the property, they were an empty shell. We need to turn them back to an empty shell. So we're working on getting some quotes for that. Christy Smith is also working on some signage for the property, and I'll have some more details in the further slides about what those projects entail. So those are all the additional expenses that would be there had the fire not happened. I also carved out some expenses that we've incurred since the fire has happened. So there was remediation. BMS CAT also did the remediation for the building, so that was a significant line item on there. PCI Daily also had some change orders. As you know, we were weeks away from being done, so a lot of the work had to be redone. So there was some change orders that happened as a result of that. You know, the ceiling tiles and the painting, Dr. Milligan had done an emergency approval. I have the rest of them lined out further in the presentation, but there were more than that. We also, the community room, which is what we are now calling the chapel. So the community room roof is in the post-fire expenses. And then we also have the community room finishing that room. So we need to address the fact that even once we get the roof completed, it is still currently an unusable space. So how do we get to the end game to where we can use that space? So currently without the community room, we're looking at just under $900,000 in post-fire expenses. So including the post-fire expenses, we're at about $1 million from what Sam had brought originally in February. Does anybody have any questions on the budget, or would you like me to maybe go through the slides and explain
Why don't you
more?
go through the slides and then we can come
Okay.
back, because there's some information, I think, in the slides that we reviewed at the Finance Committee that answer what I can imagine are some potential questions that are percolating.
All right. Oh, sorry, I forgot that I had a summary slide here. Okay, so the capital projects fund started this year with just under $6 million. We did have, we purchased 3 buses. Those were $100,000, so that's accounted out of that original amount. As it stands, with all of the expenses that I showed you, we would be in a deficit of $775,000. However, when I brought you the general fund budget, we had designated that any excess fund balance would be placed into the capital projects fund. So taking that into consideration, we're looking at about $600,000 in the positive. But we also need to make sure that we're keeping in mind that there's those 3 outstanding items, the white box, the signage, and finishing the community room, that would go into that 600,000. So that won't be the end number, that's just the number we have currently at this moment. Okay, so the community room roof, like I said, BMS CAT was the low qualifying bidder. The quote came in at just over $200,000. They're gonna demo the roof, install new trusses, rebuild the damage, and replace the roof membrane, which I believe that means the shingles. They are currently working on submitting permits to the state and getting the trusses approved. As soon as they get the drawings approved, they will be able to give us a timeline, but as of right now, they can't give us a hard timeline because it's contingent on how long it takes for the state to approve those drawings. They are aware of our ticking time clock. Like I said, we met with them yesterday and they seem to be on track with a completion date of August 22nd. Worst case, they were saying that they could at least have the big machinery work done and they might be in there finishing up shingling or, the last minute cleanup stuff, but the setting of the trusses, the demolition, lifting the shingles on the roof, they said they should be able to get all of that heavy machinery out before then.
And I think when we met too, you guys had shared that they have a 20-person crew on standby for this job. So if anyone's seen roofing done, 20 people can get a lot done really quickly.
Yes, and they had all hands on deck yesterday. They had all of the contractors there. They were doing all the final measurements. They were trying to get everything ready so that they can get them out. And like I said, it seems like they are on track. Here are is the breakdown of the change orders. Of that $50,000 that you approved in February, we still have $33,000 remaining. They are going through inspections this week, so there could be little things that come up that could dip into that, but as of right now, we do have a good chunk remaining to fix any things that come up. These are the list of the post-fire change orders that we've approved already. Dr. Milligan did the emergency approval for the ceiling tiles and the repainting. The other ones were underneath the board approval threshold, so we went ahead and approved those to keep the project flowing. These are the change orders that are pending. There's a couple that IDS our architecture company is reviewing before we approve any pay apps or change orders. The architecture company goes through and ensures that the scope of work matches the invoice amount to make sure they're on track. The visual boards, those were the whiteboards that we had ordered for the classrooms and the offices. They were stored in the chapel, the community room, and they were damaged in the fire. We are holding on this because we do have some whiteboards available in the district. We're trying to get an inventory and see if we could potentially repurpose before we reorder. So that's why that one's on the pending. The parking lot. I did a pre-construction meeting with BSI yesterday. We were hopeful that the parking lot was going to be finished before the first day of school. There's been a lot of rain, and we are not so hopeful that it's going to be completed on the first day of school. I did receive a tentative timeline from them just before I came here. So they are saying they will start demolition of the existing lot on the week of August 12th. It'll take about a week for that to happen. The concrete to do the curbs, that will start on August 19th, and that will also take a week for the concrete to cure before they can do any additional work. And then they're hoping to get the asphalt and the final grade in the week of August 26th. I did count the parking spaces in the front of the building. We have 44 spaces plus 2 handicap. So we have plenty of spaces available for our Bridges drivers as well as any visitors for OVA, parents dropping kids off, picking up technology, those sorts of things. I'm going to be reaching out to our the owners of the other property to see if we can maybe borrow some parking spots from them to kind of come up with a contingency plan. So I'm waiting to hear back from them, but we have some plans in works, and it sounds like it'll be just a short time, maybe a week or two, as long as the rain plays nice. So the relocation of the programs, that was the 3 lines for the moving. We did secure Ready installed to move all 3 programs. He is ready to go as soon as we tell him he can start. We have a tentative start date of August 1st. He believes it'll take about 2 weeks to complete the move for all 3 programs. He is going to move the furniture and the contents and set the furniture back up that we are going to reuse over at OEIC. So it's a big job for him. As for the furniture, I received an email from the furniture lady just before I came here as well, and she has a tentative delivery date of the quick ship items, which is the vast majority of the items, for August 5th. So Ready Install, the same company that we hired to do our move, is also contracted with Interior Environments, and they won the bid to also install our new furniture. So I'm hoping it'll be a smooth transition since they're doing all of the furniture. If there's any move around if we need to do, they'll be able to accommodate that. And then also, like I had said last time, there are going to be some pieces that will not be there in time, and it's mostly storage, cafeteria tables. We're gonna bring in, we have plans for some backups for what we need to get that taken care of. The signage, we are working on getting some quotes. Christy has been working with Signorama, who's done a lot of work with us in the past. She's also looking at a couple other companies to get some competitive pricing. We need signage for all of the interior doors and name tags, directional signs to say which hallway. I don't know if you guys have been in there, but you can get turned around real fast. So we need some directional signs inside. Allison has also been working on outside door numbers and ensure that we have all of the safety signs that we need. We also will need a road sign that is, we learned we need to pull a permit, so that might be delayed a little bit, but we have a plan to get some temporary signs to make sure that people can find the property until we can get that permanent sign in. And we are going to stay consistent with what we put in place at the other buildings. I think you said the high school, it's going to look like the high school sign on Ray Road. So we're going to try and stay consistent with that. There's also a building sign that we're going to stay consistent. It's the triangle with the name underneath it, like we have on other buildings. And then we also need some directional traffic signs. So we have one way in, one way out. We'll need, no parking, no entry, those types of signs as well. Some of the signs that are there are dated, need to be replaced. So Christy's working on that. And then the white box of OVA, we had a contractor out last week. I'm waiting on his final quote. We also had another contractor out yesterday, and then I will walk with him again tomorrow to get another quote. Both contractors were saying it's going to be about 6 to 8 weeks from start to finish. So we are hoping to get that wrapped up in the next week or so to get that secured. As soon as we can get OVA out of there and get the contractors in there, we will make that happen.
So I'll start by just inserting a few comments if we want to walk backwards through it. So the OVA white box too is just an important thing for the board to know is that our lease is up at those facility spaces. And to get this done will save us a significant amount of money. Right now, we pay $14,000 a month for rent there. Anything on a month-to-month is 1.5 times that. So we need to, this is a project that we have to wrap up and end, essentially. Going back to the signage, one thing that we did talk about in the finance committee too was looking to the township if there was any grants available, right? I don't know if you were followed up on that in terms of, especially at the roadway, if we can help offset some of the costs through any grants that might be available through Oxford
I
Township.
believe we were looking at, there is some trees that are impeding the view of the sign. Also, when you're pulling out of the property, there is some overgrown area that we were going to reach out to the township and see if they can help us with that so that we wouldn't have to take on that project.
Yep. And then furniture, just to note, I know we talked about it in the last meeting because we approved it, but there is some that's coming out of that food service fund. So not all of it is out of the capital projects fund. It's about $29,000. Going back, I think relocation's pretty straightforward. Parking lot is unfortunate, but my garden does love all the rain. I know the parking lot doesn't, but my vegetables look great. Going back to the building in general, in terms of some of the changes that occurred, and I think just going back, if you want to go to the summary slide where you're going through where we have a negative balance. One of the things that we haven't talked a lot about at this table, but we did talk about extensively at the Finance Committee, was the fact that we are still pending insurance investigation and settlement from them. So as we're sharing this numbers, you can see, she didn't really point it out, but there's potential reimbursement. It's not uncommon in situations where there's a property loss that can take some time. It's not as straightforward as car insurance, commercial fire and stuff, and to make it more complicated, there are multiple parties. Oakland County Sheriff did their investigation. Oxford Community Schools chose to do a third-party fire investigation just to make sure that our interests were being best represented, since the building was occupied by contractors, not Oxford community staff at the time. We are waiting for that to be finalized before we will know what our actual settlement will end up being after the insurance, and any of those who've had loss of property understand that this can be a long process. I hate to say, for example, I lost my house to a fire in November of 19, and it was October of 2020 by the time I settled with insurance fully. So it can take a lot of back and forth on what exactly, falls within different limits of the policy. So they are working at that. The cause of the fire universally appears to be determined as an electrical fire from a can light in the ceiling. But our final reports are not completely finalized, but looking through the drafts, it appears that it was a can light that had been left on that caused the fire to occur. I know there have been a lot of questions and speculations about what actually caused the fire, and that appears to be what everybody's agreeing upon, is that it was electrical at this point. Just going through some of the other details on that. So that project fund balance, with that reimbursement from the insurance company, there'll be some money. We just don't know how much money just yet, because we're still negotiating through that process. Could be up to that total cost of the loss, including these expenses that we have listed here for you guys today. So it would bring our project fund balance up. The other thing that we discussed during the Finance Committee too extensively, because as we're looking into the future, it's not just looking at right now, is in general our facilities. We have an excellent facilities team. They do a lot to help support the infrastructure of the schools. But we have to be realistic in realizing even the building we're sitting in today, I attended middle school here, and I've been graduated for a really long time, so I want to point out that these buildings are aging, and we need to make sure that we are pulling attention to what our facilities teams are telling us on a regular basis. The initial conversation, and once John Fitzgerald, right, he's our new business guy, excellent hire out of Lake Orion. We're really excited to have him start with us, I think next Monday, was do we have a separate facilities committee for the board, so that way we're monitoring the conditions of our facilities also moving forward, so we know when the right time is, whether this project fund balance continues to grow for our capital projects, and or if we need to look at other funding mechanisms for some of the projects. And we've talked about this At a few meetings for Ann and Mike, we talked about this maybe about 6 to 8 months ago, where the potential for a millage that we allowed to sunset back in 2022, it sunsetted without renewal, has taken a big hit on our capital. So millages are used for capital replacements, so boilers, facility upgrades, stuff like that. Will we need to go back to the community? We had tabled it for now. We didn't think it was the right time to go through, and then the fire hit, and now I think there's an urgency behind making sure that we're very much more in touch with our facilities than we were previously. I would say the recommendation that Mike Whitney and I had coming out of that is that the Finance and Facilities Committee be one. So we'd be happy to take another board member on it as well. The facilities team would then come and report to us some of the facility issues that are occurring, you know, what timelines we're looking at from a reality standpoint, how many Band-Aids can we put on a boiler before we really have to, or how many tar patches on a roof before we have to get that drip in the middle school library fixed. And all of us know, because we've been in board meetings where it's just dripping in the middle of board meeting. So we need to keep focus on that. And then the recommendation would be, if we were to go forward with either a sinking fund or a bond at some point in the future, that they would separate, so there'd be a very focused group on making sure whatever work was put into those, either the millage or the bond, had full attention and wasn't being deterred also by other operational finance committee stuff. So overarching, I don't think I missed anything from our meeting. If I did, please interrupt me.
I think it's important that draining this capital project fund is going to put a big strain on whether we are able to do those facility projects. So like Aaron said, we either have to go for a sinking fund, pass a millage, something to get some funding in for those projects, because I did meet with the maintenance department and there is a list that we need to address. So the more that we can save in this and make those possible, because I know that you two weren't here when I brought the budget, and I don't know if you remember, but we only have allotted $500,000 in the general fund to cover capital projects, and you blink and it's gone. So I think what you said was great about we need to keep focused on those ongoing facilities as well, not just the big projects that we have going on.
Yeah, and Mike and I made the commitment during that we would meet monthly with Courtney and or the facilities team, John Fitzgerald, Dr. Milligan, so that way that we're bringing stuff to you guys on a very regular basis. And then that way nothing is being dropped, because with the state budget changing so much more dramatically, the unknown number of weeks or months until we settle with the insurance company, and the fact that we do have aging facilities, we want to make sure that we're not letting a month go by where we're not having a conversation about some of these things, so that way we're fully prepared and have a lot of evidence should we have to go to the community and ask for additional tax dollars to support it. So, and it won't be on this November's ballot, so no one take that and say anything. We're at a point of observation. It's not coming to this November's ballot. So, any questions? I know that was a lot of information, and I likely missed something that you guys probably told me to ask, and I probably have it up here, but I didn't regurgitate it yet.
No, that's okay. I appreciate it. That was a lot, and I know we asked for a lot, so thank you. I do want to understand a little bit more clear here. With the projected deficit and capital projects fund, that does not include the projects you had mentioned that do not have quotes yet, correct?
Correct. Those
So-
are not reflected on this sheet here.
So we're actually looking more, at least a $500,000 higher.
Correct. However, you have like I said, we designated any surplus fund balance in the general fund would be used to replenish the capital project. So the deficit is before you take into account any transfers that we would do once the audit is finalized. So our audit is going to be in September. Once they come out, they make sure that everything is posted appropriately and they figure out what that bottom line number is. It's already written into the budget that it's going to be transferred over. When I estimated in June, that was 1.3. So we have a good estimate of amount that we are going to replenish back into the capital projects fund. So the end would be the 600,000, but then you would still have to take those 3 items off of there.
The end would be the 600,000, but that's not including the 500,000.
Right,
So the end would really be 100,000. When we're
Correct.
talking about just the projects here.
correct.
Okay. So now we're actually looking at the fund balance being around 100,000. And what other items are left, if any, after this? Because, you know, in '21, this was projected to be a $3 to $5.5 million project. We don't know what the expenses 100% were between '21 and '24 at this point, but now we know that 6 million just this year, and then another $500,000. So what else are we looking at is what I'm wondering after that.
So I took this project on about 4 weeks ago. I am hoping that I have corralled everything. I've worked with the entire cabinet. We have brainstormed. We worked with the tech department. We brought Larry Gallagher in from Berkeley to get his insight to make sure that we have all of our bases covered. I am hopeful that we have everything included. I cannot say that there's not going to be something that comes up in the inspection. I can't say that once we put technology in, maybe we need an extra line dropped or something like that, but I feel confident that I have given you as comprehensive of a list as we can give you today. But there's still a lot of unknowns. Things are changing by the minute. When I say I received emails before I came here, it was literally in the car when I was walking in. I got the email from the parking lot. So, I mean, balls are rolling fastly.
Sure.
When's inspection? It's next week.
I wrote this down. There's a plumbing, a mechanical, a fire, and then the final. So as soon as the plumbing, mechanical, fire are completed, he's got the final on call to come out. He's hoping that he'll be out at the end of the week, if not the beginning of next week.
Okay.
And then that would put us, the first is Thursday. He's hoping to have an release of occupancy by Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Good.
I do want to thank Courtney. She has taken on an enormous role. Both she and I have inherited this lovely project. And so thank you, Courtney. Thank you also to Rob in the maintenance
Yes.
department. Rob has stepped up and really helped significantly. Larry, of course, has joined us, which was incredibly helpful. And of course, the cabinet team. Like, it really has been all hands on deck, everybody rolling up their sleeves and just getting the work done. Courtney, I get emails from her at crazy hours. I'm not sure she ever sleeps. So I just wanted to express my appreciation.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can tell that the focus is to get the kids that we promised into that building. I know this was very important to our Loft and Bridges and OVA faculty and students to get
Yes.
into this new space, and thank you. I know it's been a lot of work, and it's been a lot of uncovering things, and I think there's a lot of, as we talked in the Finance Committee about capital projects moving forward, how to better be inclusive of things that could be potential changes and stuff like that. And I know with John coming on board and the notes that we left with Courtney after the meeting, I think this new way of presenting will be a more thorough way. So if we do have bigger capital projects in the future, I don't think we're going to be stumbling through some of these fines, I guess we'll call them.
And I just want to add one more thing. We did a walkthrough today, a punch list It is going to be a beautiful space for our students, just beautiful. If you think about where they're located currently, I want to be there on the first day and see them walk in. I just want to see their faces because the facilities really do tell kids how much we value them. And when a community takes the time, the energy, the resources to create a wonderful space for learning, you can tell. Like the kids are just joyous. They feel, I've actually had kids tell me, wow, they must really like us. Of course we do, right? So it's going to be very exciting. I know it's been a lot of work, a tremendous amount of money, tremendous amount of time and effort, but I'll tell you, when those kids come in, you will see the difference on their faces. So thank you to the community for your support. Thank you for allocating the funds. It will make a huge difference.
All right.
Do you want to do the resolution?
Yep,
for
that's what I was just going to say. If I have a board member under this item on the agenda, if you would like to read the resolution for the roof, I will take that now. Amanda?
Move to resolve that the Oxford Board of Education approves, recognizes BMS CAT of Michigan as the contractor awarded the OEIC roof demolition and restoration project in the amount of $200,887 to be funded with Capital Projects Fund resources and all, as presented.
Do I have support? Yes. Mike? Any discussion? And again, it says capital funds in here now. That's just because that's how we're paying for it now. Eventually, the goal would be to have insurance reimburse us for that as we continue to work through that process. All right, all those in favor, say aye. 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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item number 9 under safety and school operations. Dr. Williman.
I just want to interject before Allison starts. So she's going to be speaking to the Code of Conduct. I just want to clarify, the Code of Conduct is an umbrella by which all handbooks, additional Code of Conducts like the Athletic Code of Conduct, it guides all of that. It guides our MTSS handbook, our behavioral response handbook, all of the internal and external. So this is the overarching parameters that supports all of that work. This is based on law, correct? And so you'll see language from this Code of Conduct in every handbook that we have. So I just wanted to kind of tee you up for that.
Thank you. And then additionally, the Code of Conduct itself, the state of Michigan puts out the model Code of Conduct. So that's kind of our template where we're allowed to personalize some areas, but it's coming directly from whatever their most updated version is of that. So when we met, it was all of the administrators had an opportunity to provide feedback, but the committee itself that met was made up of myself, Tony DeMar, the athletic director, because we did discuss the athletic code of conduct as well, Steve Wolf, Deja Beasley, Brad Bigelow, Chad Boyd. And so we had some emails. They were allowed to either tell the respective administrator who could then bring the input, or they could just email me directly. So there wasn't a lot of changes this year, as much as making sure that it was reflected with the new board policy numbers. And then in the reinstatement meeting section, which that's the legal jargon for it, but we call them our reentry meetings. We added a section so that it wasn't just the administrator meeting with the student, because depending on the context of the situation, the student may best be served by having a school-based mental health professional there as well. And so we wanted that to reflect that it could be a principal and or the school-based mental health professional. And we wanted to leave it using that same language because it could be the FSL or a school psych or a social worker or a counselor. It didn't have to just be the counselor, because as we know, we have an abundance of mental health. So we want to make sure that if all 4 of them needed to be present at the meeting, they were. So we wanted to make sure that that was highlighted as part of that. And then there were just two things that kept coming up during the year, and one of them was in our failure to properly register a motor vehicle driven to school. the way that it was worded within the description of it was that it was just improper parking of a motor vehicle driven to school, but the high school really wanted it to say also failure to have a school-issued parking pass. So it wasn't just you parked in an odd spot. If you don't register to get your parking pass, that would be considered your level 1 infraction. And then disregard for the educational environment or school operations, that kind of became a catch-all, which made it difficult to then have conversations to look at trends, to identify where we may need to give more support. So what we agreed to as a committee, and it was really the principals coming forward with us, and I really appreciate the time that they took to really think about how can we take something like disregard for educational environment and better define what it is instead of it being just this ambiguous thing that just is the catch-all. And one of the biggest things that stuck out was that it said horseplay and inappropriate physical contact within that, like persistent little disruptions, where horseplay and inappropriate physical contact is different. And we all agreed that that was different. So we made that its own category. So we still have disregard for the educational environment, but then we made a new category for inappropriate physical contact against another student and inappropriate physical contact against staff, contractor, or volunteer. And this aligns with the way the language is as we get further in our levels for anything as fighting, assault, anything like that. These are those consistent horseplay, small things that aren't reaching the level of being something that would be considered assault, but still creates a disruption in the way that classes are run, or consistent issues, recess, that unstructured time where kids start to horseplay. So there wasn't a lot, and it's just here this week, this meeting to be presented to you, and then next meeting, once you've had more time to go through it and really study it, that's when you would vote on it. Any questions at this point?
Did you say there was a mental health professional on that committee? Or just the principals?
Not for this, but we
Okay.
did put within the reinstatement meetings, which we call our reentry meeting, we just clearly define that it could be an administrator and or a school-based mental health professional.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, so we'll bring this back to the August 13th meeting for finalization. Great.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. All right, item number 10, unscheduled public comment. Kelly's bringing me the cards. All right. We just have one today. Kara Erskine, are you ready, James? Yeah. Okay, Kara.
Hello. So I was just going to make a suggestion that maybe you could put the link to the superintendent Zoom meetings on the homepage of the district website, because it's not on there, and that would be helpful because I couldn't find it. And then I was wondering if there are updates on the Parent Safety Committee and the SEAB, which is the Sex Education Advisory Board, because I haven't heard anything about that in a while. And then I know a lot of you know that, I wasn't going to speak about this part, but a lot of you know that I'm pro-school funding, and probably tried to, saw me peddling during the homecoming game. Oh, sign this petition for school funding at the last homecoming game to increase school budget funding, that sort of stuff. And I was feeling a lot of feelings, so many feelings when you guys were talking about this millage that is not on this upcoming ballot for November, thank goodness, because that gives you time, right? And the feelings that were coming up is so many that I can't quite name them yet, because it's amazing, because you're gonna ask the community to show up, right? That's essentially what a millage is. You want the community to show up for the school when the community has been asking you for 966 days for you to show up for us. And that's 966 days since November 30th. And it's a good thing that we don't have to vote on this yet, because it still gives you time to support a full investigation. and to contact the members and to support the families, because that hasn't been done yet. That's it.
Thank you. All right, looking at the agenda, we have the scheduled activities next. The August 13th board meeting, and then first day of school is August 22nd. Dr. Milligan, do you have any administrative clarification?
No.
Right. Final board comments. I do have two. I have one. The board participated in superintendent evaluation training. The evaluations for teachers and administrators did change in this academic year, starting in 2024. So we did that a couple weeks ago now, the 10th, July 10th. And where we did set the proverbial goal that Dr. Milligan would be on her 30, 60, 90-day plan as her goals, those that were agreed upon, and that we would be looking after the first of the year at moving into strategic planning. In addition, today was the last day to register for elections, so we thank anybody in the community who did stand up and look to get onto the Board of Education. There are 3 open spots on the 4-year term, and then 1 open spot on the 2-year term. At this time, Colleen and I have chose not to run for subsequent terms. So with that, there are a great group of people, I believe, that are there, and I look forward and willing to connect with those individuals as they go through the process of entertaining the community to posture their, qualifications. So with that being said, any other comments from the board? Great. Meeting adjourned.